Hello, boys and girls. Today we're going to talk about Christopher Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci. Last time we met, we learned all about Leif Erikson and the Vikings, so this will be a little bit different. All right, Christopher Columbus. Notice we have some headings here. So first up is his biography. Columbus was born in Genoa, Italy in 1451. He later lived in Lisbon, where he worked as a trader. He learned how to make maps and navigate a ship. Christopher Columbus is the European explorer who is credited for discovering America. However, we know that there were already indigenous people living in America at the time. There was even another European explorer, Leif Erikson, who had been to the Americas before. However, it was Columbus's voyage that started exploration and colonization of the Americas. And we know that that had quite a negative impact on those indigenous people who were already living there. Next up, we have a shortcut to China. Columbus and his brother Bartholomew knew that there were great riches to be had in China and the Indies. However, traveling overland by the Silk Road was dangerous, and a sea route around Africa seemed much too long. Columbus thought that he could sail straight to China by crossing the Atlantic Ocean. It would turn out that Columbus was wrong. The earth was much larger than he thought, and there was another land, the Americas, between Europe and Asia. 3 ships and a long voyage. You guys probably learned those 3 ships' names. Columbus spent years trying to convince someone to pay for his voyage. He first tried to get King John II of Portugal to pay for his journey, but the king was not interested. Finally, he was able to convince Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain to pay for the trip. He set sail on August 12, 1492, with 3 ships named the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The voyage was long and difficult. At one point, his men threatened mutiny and wanted to turn back. They didn't think he had a good plan. Columbus promised them he would turn back in 2 days if they didn't find land. In his journal, however, he wrote that he had no intention of turning back. Interesting. What does that tell us about Columbus's character? Finding land. On October 12, 1492, land was spotted. It was a small island in the Bahamas that Columbus would name San Salvador. He met natives there that he called Indians because he was convinced that he had landed in the Indies. After making his discovery, Columbus was eager to return home to Spain and claim his riches. Only the Pinta and the Nina were able to return to Spain. The Santa Maria wrecked off the coast of Hispaniola. Upon returning home, Columbus was treated like a hero. He presented some things he had found, including turkeys, pineapples, and captured natives. The King of Spain was pleased enough to fund future expeditions. Columbus wrote in his journal that the native people would make good servants. He not only captured and enslaved some of the natives, but he tortured, sold, and killed some of them to gain power and land. Boys and girls, we can see very clearly from this section that Christopher Columbus was definitely looking for gold, and he was also most definitely looking for glory. All right, so our last section here, we have more voyages. Columbus would make 3 more voyages to the Americas. He explored more of the Caribbean and even saw mainland America. Although he was governor of the territory, the Spanish monarchs arrested him for mistreating some of the colonists. Columbus died on May 20th, 1506. He died thinking he had discovered a shortcut to Asia across the Atlantic Ocean. He never knew that he had found a new continent. Although Columbus is known for starting the age of exploration, it is also believed that he started bringing diseases to America. which eventually wiped out much of the native population. All right, guys. So I know when I was a child in school, we were taught about Christopher Columbus and how he was a hero and all the amazing things that he did. But after reading, we can see that Christopher Columbus did do some amazing things. However, it was much to the expense of the people who were already living in the Americas at the time. So, boys and girls, we have to make sure that we're not looking at him necessarily as a hero, but as a human being who did some things that were pretty cool, like exploring, but he did do some extremely negative things as well. All right, so as we finish that up, we're going to complete these questions here. So while you were reading, before you were reading, after you were reading, put down your questions. You're going to talk about why the Silk Road is bold-faced in the article. Why do you think the author chose to do that? Visualization. So we're going to write a simile. The island was as small as. Text to self connection. Tell me about something in the article that's familiar to you. So think about what you've learned about Christopher Columbus in the past, maybe the places that he visited, something that you knew about before that you can connect to. Inference. Do you think Christopher Columbus died a happy man? Why or why not? And what was your opinion of Columbus before you read this article? And did your opinion change? So please explain how you feel. All right, so now we're going to take a look at our second explorer for the week, Amerigo Vespucci. Again, we're going to read about him, we're going to think out loud about him, and then we're going to do a writing activity. So this one's a little different because we're not answering the questions at the end. So Amerigo Vespucci, you can see a nice little illustration over there. And right off the bat, I'm thinking Amerigo sounds a lot like America. That's just me. Maybe there's a connection there. Let's find out. So, biography. Amerigo Vespucci was born in Florence, Italy, to a respected family. He received a good education and worked for the Medici, a powerful family in Europe. The Medici sent him to Spain in 1491 to prepare ships for voyages. Here, he developed a friendship with Christopher Columbus and became eager to explore the unknown. So it seems like that friendship, they both had exploration in common. Voyages. With his knowledge of preparing a ship, his education in astronomy, and advice from Christopher Columbus, Vespucci was confident to explore the seas. Spain agreed to fund his voyage. Vespucci's first expeditions reached the coast of South America. He continued traveling south along the coast in search of a waterway that he hoped would take him to India. Since he did not find this waterway, Spain thought his voyage was unsuccessful and stopped funding his voyages. Oh, he got cut off. However, Portugal decided to support him and he continued his travels. Found a new friend. He came back with stories about the native peoples and their large huts. He was believed to have discovered present-day Rio de Janeiro. All right, the navigator. With Vespucci's knowledge and interest in navigation, he was able to determine that he had discovered new land. He used an almanac based on astronomy to figure out the time difference, distance, and his ship's location in longitude. He figured there was no possible way he could be in the Indies. All right, so let's compare and contrast Vespucci and Columbus. Both Vespucci and Columbus had landed in the New World. Columbus thought he had discovered an unknown part of Asia, whereas Vespucci actually knew that he was in a quote-unquote New World. Naming the New World. In 1507, a cartographer named Martin Wolsey Muller was working on a map of the world. Since he wanted to include the New World, he suggested naming these new lands America, after Amerigo Vespucci. There we go. It was the first map created that included the new lands as well as a portrait of Vespucci. After his travels, although Vespucci was done exploring, he still encouraged others to adventure into the seas. He became a master navigator in Spain. He recruited and trained other navigators and prepared a map of the routes ships should take when traveling to the New World. All right, guys. So now that we've read and answered the questions about Christopher Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci, you're going to pretend that you're one of the explorers and you're going to write a friendly letter to your friend telling them about your exploration and findings. So remember, Christopher Columbus and Amerigo Vespucci were friends. So maybe you could write to each other. So if you're pretending you're Amerigo, write to Christopher. If you're Christopher, write to Amerigo. Or you could just pick anyone else. All right, so make sure that you include all the things that you've been seeing on your journey, what it's like living on the ship. Please be as creative and thoughtful as possible. Your letter should be 5 to 8 sentences in length and should demonstrate that you understand what that person was like as an explorer. Good luck, and I can't wait to read your answers and especially to see that friendly letter. Have a great day, guys.